Hail Internet, it's Paul, it's Matt, the Dork Lords. We're here talking about House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea. We open with Ranira rejecting various suitors, some too old, some too young.
None are just right.
None are just right. None is a bowl of porridge. We have suitors killing each other. And we can kind of see how important it is to everyone except Ranira, basically. And we end with King Viserys firing Otto Hightower as Hand of the King, sending Ranira a tea to help her get rid of any unwanted pregnancy. Paul, what did you think of episode 4?
I liked it. I thought another strong episode. Some people have criticized the show for being a slow burn, but for me, I like that they take the time to let you learn who the characters are. As I've told you, I like the political intrigue, and they're just giving you plenty of that intrigue.
This is very Game of Thrones politics in this episode. Yeah, it didn't have a bunch of dragons killing other things. Agreed, but it did have the intrigue, the political intrigue, and a lot changes in terms of people's status within the Game of Thrones, if you want to call it that.
Last episode had a lot of violence. This week they said, let's get a lot of sex.
Let's get a lot of sex. Well, also, as a result of this episode, you've got, so Damon is exiled again. Like, man, okay.
Yes.
He shows up, go away. Show up, go away.
Is it a full 24 hours?
Yeah, exactly. Otto has been dismissed as the Hand. Ranira has been ordered now to marry Corlys Valerian's son, Laenor. And Ranira has now, she's had sex with the King's Guard, Sir Criston, which almost
ruins his career.
Right, it certainly won't go well. That's not good for him, probably. But apparently, next episode 5, will be the last one for the actress that's playing the young Ranira.
And the young...
and the young Alicent, right. So there's apparently, I would guess there's going to be a significant time jump between 5 and 6, it sounds like.
And, you might want to Matt Viserys...
That's right. Well, yes, that's right. In a show that's all about who's going to be the next person on the throne, the guy who's currently on the throne, bye now. yeah, agreed.
He's not even going to make it, till at the end of the season, I don't think.
No, I agree. No, I think he's a season 1 out. Peace out. Sir Criston, I think, has a little more time. He's an important enough character that I don't think he's simply like the random guy that ended up having sex with Ranira, and now he's important enough to the story that he's got a little bit of plot armor. Okay. But I did feel in the Game of Thrones, how it's like it can be fair, it can be unfair. For Otto, kind of unfair, right? I mean, yes, he is a politically motivated guy. He's ambitious, but he had spies for his interests, but also for the king's. And his spy tells him fairly reliably, hey, by the way, I saw the king's brother having sex, it looked like, with the king's daughter in a brothel. I mean, that's pretty important news. That's like, the king probably would want to know this. If I didn't tell him and he found out from someone else, boy, I look like a jerk.
Yeah, but here's the thing, actually. He's right. Viserys is right.
Okay.
He says, you threw your daughter in there with me to, when I was vulnerable.
Correct.
In order to, that was true.
Yes, it's, as I say, he is
what
ambitious.
He didn't know is all the times that Otto was going to his daughter, like, hey, you got to convince him. You have to make him make this decision to, make my grandson the heir.
I agree that he was ambitious. I do feel, though, I don't know, everyone's got an angle? Like, who doesn't have an angle on the court?
I think what you're criticizing him for is that he has not as much evidence as he may have needed to make the right decision.
Well, that's true. Well, and we do see him reflecting, and like in other words, if he was just simply like, "Muhahaha," as soon as he got that information, he'd be like, "Awesome. Let me go tell the king." But instead, he's like, "Oh, I don't want to have to do this." He's got these. He kind of knows that this could go badly for him, I think, and it does. Anyway, it's just interesting. It's not a black and white. I'm not saying, hey, the king was wrong to let him go. I don't think he was necessarily, but it's like, it's interesting. It's a cool little moral shades of gray moment.
Yeah. It's very intricate, which is of course speaks well of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I don't think Otto was ready to stab him in the back. I think he was like a guy he had his own ambitions, and they happened to kind of align with the king. Like, hey, you've got a son. That son is related to me. That's cool. But anyway, so it's just interesting. And obviously now there's going to be certainly awkwardness between king and queen, right? He just let her dad go. I mean, that's got to be like Anyway, I just fired your dad. What do we, you want to go grab some lunch? You know, like...
Well, you know, I don't... Yeah, we'll see how free she feels to express displeasure to her husband.
No, but I mean, she'll think
you know.
I mean, you know.
Yeah. But you know, it's not like everything was going so well until then. I made a big point. There's a big point of like, oh, while you know, Rhaenyra is out having out. You know, Alicent is inside having a miserable time with her child, and then her husband having to, you know, bathe his wounds, and then attend to his lusts.
Yes.
So
the sacrifices she has made to be queen, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they made a point of showing what was on her face, and I'm not sure if some point. I'm not even sure if any point, but it seemed like they showed so much of it. They were sort of like, geez, we need some kind of, you know, like tally of like, was she about to throw up there, or is she, you know, is she just mad there or bored there? Does she think about the, you know, what's going on in her brain?
Right. Yeah, like a little thought bubble.
Yeah, because like, why would they show? They were showing a lot of it, and the contrast with, because I'm sure this show has an intimacy coordinator, you know, because you had all these stages with Rhaenyra and her guard, where it's like,
Kristen.
Okay, take this off.
Get the armor off.
Do I have consent? You know, it's like all this visual you know, it's gonna happen, right?
Also, just the fact that it would take that long, which it would, right?
Yes,
like,
that's
I gotta
true.
take this stuff off. I mean, what the? Okay, fine. How much time you got?
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's nice for her not to be like, you know what? I've changed my mind. You know, at some point, like, oh, I'm ready to go.
You know what? This is a bad idea. Okay. You know what? I've thought this through. You've even got that moment with Alicent where it, you know, you get the feeling this has happened several times. They got a bunch of kids, where, you know, the lady in waiting comes out and it's like, oh, well, the king wants to see you, and she's like, oh, you know, it's late.
Yes.
And then the response is just yes. You're like, oh, okay. No need to finish rest of sentence.
Yeah.
That does not matter. And there was a really interesting conversation between Alicent and Rhaenyra at the beginning of the episode, where they were like, oh, you know, now I'm just seen as a queen, and I miss...
I don't know why I was surprised that they were able to mend their friendship. You know, because I think I'd but noticed how long she was holding a grudge.
Yeah.
You know,
that's right. We should say that there was another passage of time.
episode.
We get like a year, I think, between the last episode and this one, something like that. Not much.
I don't know, but
a
it's
little bit
more
of time.
than. I don't think it's more than. I think it might be less than a year because.
I heard something like 4
months
years as opposed to 3 years, and that's why I thought so. But you're right. Somewhere in there, some version of a year has passed since episode 3.
Yeah, I think it's less though. I mean, obviously she had the baby, but I don't think it's been a whole year since that battle where the crab killer was killed. So I'd say some months, but not immediately afterwards.
Here's a little Dork Lord trivia fact for you. I was almost named Damon.
Is that right?
That's right.
Wow.
My parents, David and Diane, already had a daughter, Dana, and so they were going to stick with the D theme and have Damon. But instead, they went with the M theme, Matthew. I was named to go along with the two family dogs, Mickey and Malcolm. So there you go.
Okay, yeah.
And I didn't get a
thank
dragon.
Your parents enough for that.
Either, yeah.
Because those families with all the similar initials.
No, that's true. There's a creepy vibe there. There's no Targaryen creepy, but it's creepy.
Yeah. Yes.
So I guess speaking of Damon and Targaryen creepy, we do have this
yes.
Seduction of Ranira, which is fairly racy even for Game of Thrones standards. And initially I thought of it kind of as I saw it the first time. I was like, okay, this is like Targaryens being Targaryens. They do like to keep the bloodline.
Well, and that's what a lot of people say. I think a
inbreeding.
lot of people are certainly used to incest with this series, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously it was in the previous series, so it's like, oh, yeah, Targaryen's gonna Targaryen.
Yeah,
but
but even within our own little Dork Lords community, we've had a couple of folks who I think were troubled by the scene.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. With Jaime and Cersei, we had brothers and sisters having sex, having kids. But I do think this is a different level of creepy. I would agree.
The scandal, or at least the trouble, real trouble, came from that union of Cersei and Jaime, because it was, Cersei was married to someone else, and so they were letting the king think that Jaime and Cersei's kids were his. So that was the scandal there. Even though I think you could even see, though, that the relationship was not especially healthy.
Right.
And I think that's the thing you should see in all these, in all these incestuous relationships, that the author doesn't see them as healthy. He's not trying to portray them as healthy.
I agree.
I think the way that people know that a showmaker can say, look, this is unhealthy, is like with Flowers in the Attic, which I feel like the romantic scenes there between a brother and sister had music where it was sort of like, something's wrong here. It's like we know they're brother and sister, but you need the music to tell us it's wrong too? Okay. It's just, like, it's like, it wasn't quite like that between Rhaenyra and Damon. So,
no.
You might think, like, do they know that this is bad? I think they know that it's bad.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm going to spell out a little bit of like Damon's intentions here, because in that post-show extras, the showrunners kind of spelled out a little bit more about Damon's intention with this moment. But
yeah, well, like one of the interesting things that they talked about was how, I've forgotten about it, they'd already established that Damon has impetus issues. And so, that was one of the things he was probably experiencing there.
I thought perhaps he just, in the moment, maybe couldn't bring himself.
Some people have been saying
act.
that, really, and
that.
but in the interviews afterwards, they were saying he's been kind of having impotency problems.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
He set the whole thing up with, you can do whatever you want, you can do whoever you want.
So I guess it's like, as Alicent tells Viserys near the end of the episode, like Damon basically wanted to reduce his brother's standing. And that's what we hear from the showrunners as well. Like, yep, that was his intention.
Yeah.
And so he's always been flirtatious with Ranira. He'd get, gave her jewelry when she was 15.
They speak, vanilla Aryan, to each other or whatever.
Yep, the little secret language. But I guess he never acted on it. Now he returns from the Narrow Sea. He's reminded that he's not the king, and he has to play kind of the part of the humble brother. And so he kind of basically wants to strike back. I think his ego is like, gah. And so his plan is, to seduce his virgin teenage niece, Ranira, publicly have sex with her in a brothel, thus making her unmarriable and damaging Viserys' legacy. I mean, I think that's kind of his his ultimate thought there.
Perhaps, or trying to push his brother into a corner where he would say, "Look, okay, you defiled her, now marry her."
Yeah, right. Because he's like, "Oh, I'll marry her." Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it's not like, again, it's like the history of the Targaryens. Like, the thing that like struck me is like, everybody is aware of the history of the Targaryens except Viserys. Because they're like, people are coming up to him and saying, "Hey, why don't you have your son marry your daughter?" And he's like, "What?" And then his brother's like, "Well, let me marry your daughter." Again, he's like, "What?"
He talks about Damon like he's a Targaryen, like, he's your brother, right? Like, you are also okay, but no, this guy's weird. It's strange. So note that, he gives Ranira the disguise. Like, "Hey, put on this disguise, sneak out, and then I'll meet you up." But then, as they're about to walk into the brothel, he removes the disguise, takes the hat off, which she's got that long platinum hair. She's pretty unmistakable at that point. I think the typical townsfolk can be like, oh, I know who that is. He's very calculated, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I think maybe what's making people extra uncomfortable with it is perhaps Rhaenyra's reaction. In a modern context, if someone were to get molested by their uncle,
right.
Especially as a weapon to publicly shame them, there would be some kind of emotional trauma involved. You need a lot of therapy probably after that. Right.
Well, I think it's possible to have a negative reaction after, even if she had appeared or at least given in at the moment. You could still have, perhaps the realization that she'd been manipulated. Especially if you could look at those early gifts as grooming.
Right. It does feel grooming.
Back then, age of consent is different than our age of consent.
Yep.
But even still, in a familial relationship, again, with the power differentials and all that.
Right, there is a huge power differential. That's why it's also different between like Jaime and Cersei. Brother, sister, uncle, niece. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe there is some lingering trauma from this event that we just haven't seen yet because it's too close to the event. But in the moment, I think some people could see that as like almost like an abuser's fantasy, right? Like, hey, she was into it. I wasn't me. Okay, maybe. So anyway, it's controversial. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Yeah.
And so there are obviously big political consequences that happen as a result of that, but I'm not sure that there are a lot of emotional consequences for Damon and Rhaenyra at this moment. But maybe there will be. Maybe there will be.
We don't know. We don't know.
It was an impactful episode.
Yes, definitely.
And even though we didn't have combat, the crab feeder, he's food for the crabs. But there was a lot of drama going on. And these sides are now being set, and so it'll be really fascinating to see. We've got the branches branching out now.
We do.
Interestingly, you mentioned Cersei, and so she was married to Robert Baratheon. I think we had a Baratheon in the first scene with Rhaenyra.
I think you're right. Yeah, we did.
So that house has been represented there.
The other thing I was thinking about, though, is, one of the essences of, I feel, Game of Thrones is this. I think I mentioned it before. These people make bad choices. There are problems inherent in this form of government. And, they don't shy away from all the archaic ideas that people had at the time. So, let's, like, as an example, incest, in order to keep their bloodline pure so they can, have dragons as pets. That's fucked up. Okay? I mean, I'm just going to say it.
There's also a downside to inbreeding, which usually,
which is blonde hair.
Blonde hair.
It's like right, but certainly genetic defects and all that. But it's interesting to see these people trying to do their best, making bad decisions, and so that's I've read a little ahead, quite a bit ahead actually. So I know
Same.
Yeah, and so bad stuff is ahead. you shouldn't think, I mean, I think with in Game of Thrones with Daenerys, that a lot of people were disappointed because they wanted her to be a hero.
They did.
And George Martin wanted to make a point about bad government, about how can people have a successful government without having people choose it and be involved in it. It's like, oh no, this is going to be the good king. No,
based on bloodline. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even still, like, okay, I'm going to conquer and do all this good stuff, and that's people end up being most of the time making decisions based on bad decisions, actually.
Right, or based on their own own power,
interest.
their own what will keep me
pride
around
and all that. So that's what the show's about. You're not supposed to think that they're heroic, which is quite a contrast with Lord of the Rings.
It is. You're absolutely right. I think even Martin said as much at one point in one of his interviews. Like, this is one of the big differences between my work and Tolkien's work. I was been editing our various Rings of Power videos, and it's like me explaining Tolkien lore to Paul in a setting where he has to kind of sit and nod about it. Like, mwah! Oh man! I'm like, so let me tell you about the background of Feanor, and it's like, it's relevant, Paul. It's relevant to the show we're talking about. It's really important. So it's great. Anyway, no, it's kind of fun.
The thing that occurs to me though when I'm nodding my head is the crab, feeder.
Crab feeder, right? You're back to crab
it's like
feeder.
He's nailed me to a cross, and these crabs of his explanation.
Even better is when you have to, like, you're interested enough that you have to ask me a question about it. Like, I have carte blanche now.
Yeah.
You're like, well, what about...
The good thing, though, is with all that video, I can take it to a doctor and like, okay, can you help me?
That's true.
Here? You can see here that there's something wrong.
This is where my PTSD started.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we will be talking about Rings of Power,
yes,
along with House of the Dragon and some She-Hulk. So come on back for all of that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it, good sir.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.